What's up, YouTube? Today we're going to be looking at the Open Great League. It is finally back, and the team that we're going to be taking a look at today is Pangoro, Grumpig, and Dragalge. Now, this team might seem a little bit odd, but Grumpig is kind of underrated in the current meta because it has really incredible coverage that hits literally everything in the meta for neutral damage, at the very least, besides Hisuian Zoroark. That is the only Pokemon that can truly wall this Pokemon. Of course, Psy-Waves are still neutral, but its charge moves are completely resisted. That said, it's not that much of an issue. You're not going to see many Hisuian Zoroarks, and it's so glassy as is that it's not really an issue anyways. And Pangoro just makes a great core with Grumpig, and Dragalge also makes a great core with Pangoro, being a poison, offsetting a lot of the dark fighter weaknesses. So yeah, kind of an ABC style team, very balanced. So before we hop into the battles, a special thank you to the expert trainer members on this channel: Benny Hemlock, Dr. Green Mustache, Soham Patil, and then an extra special thank you to the legend trainer members on this channel: Big Burden, Andrew Pitton, Musachu, Noodleman, and Speedster. Without further ado, let's hop into these battles. Alright, Pangoro takes on a Scizor in the first match, and the opponent is going to stay in. Now, Night Slash is double resisted here, so I know I can overfarm. These bullet punches are doing a lot of damage, so I will have to respect any charge move coming back from my opponent as long as they have farmed up to the Trailblaze. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. It is the Trailblaze. I can just shield that up and now go for a second Night Slash, and if they shield this, I will instantly pivot out of this matchup, and that's exactly what my opponent's going to do. They end up pivoting into a Jellicent, but they were a little slow on the swap, allowing me to outpace, make it to a Shadow Ball, and Shadow Ball is super effective damage, and with no shields left in play, thanks to our Pangoro, we can actually one shield fully farm down the Jellicent and come out with a dynamic punch loaded for the Scizor if it wants to come back in. Is my opponent going to come back in with the Scizor, or are they going to show us their third? They are going to come back in with a Scizor, so we can throw one more Psy-Wave, go for the Dynamic Punch. This will be enough to pick up the knockout on the glassy Scizor. What's in the back? It's a Diggersby, but because we threw one Psy-Wave, we can actually also outpace the Diggersby by one turn before they get to a Fire Punch. Now, I'm going to overfarm here, wait until my opponent gets to the back-to-back charge moves, and then switch, catch, onto the Pangoro, and this is absolutely huge because all that energy is wasted. Fire Punch does pick up the knockout here. Am I going to come in with my third, or am I going to come back with Grumpig? I am going to come in with Dragalge. I know I can live one Scorching Sands, so I'm not too worried about it. And as soon as I connect with an Aqua Tail, this game is over. But my opponent isn't at the back-to-back move, so I decide, you know what? I'm just going to full send the Outrage. They have no shields left in play. This is a stab move. It does more damage, base damage, than an Aqua Tail, and it is enough to pick up the knockout. Into the next match, fantastic lead. We've got Pangoro into Decidueye, and the Decidueye is staying in this matchup. That means something is incredibly wrong for my opponent in the back, and they let the Night Slash go. Of course, I have no fast move pressure here, but as soon as that Night Slash connects, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take this. They end up full sending the Frenzy Plant. I'm now at the back-to-back Night Slashes, so if my opponent wants to shield, they're going to have to commit both shields in this matchup. There's the first. We end up getting the boost, which is kind of unfortunate because a Clodsire comes in, which means I want to pivot out of this matchup into my Grumpig, so I farm up to the back-to-back Night Slashes, so I can land one, bank one, and now in comes Grumpig. For those super effective Psy-Waves, I can live any one charge move here, so I will just let this go. It is the Earthquake. Now I can overfarm here, go for the Shadow Ball. You see a little bit of lag. This is just because the first 6 or so of these battles are actually done live on stream and then taken from the stream. Back in comes the Decidueye. I get the full Psy-Wave farm down. What's in the back? It's another Diggersby, and now Diggersby will be met with a super effective Dynamic Punch. But yeah, so these some of these battles are going to be a little bit grainier than normal. Can we get to another Dynamic Punch? We can. That is absolutely massive. This will do some very solid chip. And now we've put them in close combat range, and we can snipe with the Pangoro. We are one away from the move. That picks up the knockout on the Diggersby, and we don't even have to show our Dragalge in that match. Just the core of Pangoro and Grumpig going absolutely ham. Fantastic lead in the next match. The opponent safe switches into a Steelix. That is not a response to a Pangoro. I'm going to full send the close combat here, either taking out the Steelix or grabbing a shield. Then I switch into my Grumpig, and I think I got a Psychic Fangs catch. Did I get it? That is absolutely massive. And now I can outpace, make it to that dynamic punch, and once again, this is super effective damage. My opponent cannot live this. They end up going down 2 shields in this matchup, farming up to the crunch. I will respect the crunch. I don't want to let my opponent flip switch in this matchup because I have such a dominant lead. And now I can just go for the dynamic punch. My opponent makes a catch, but they catch back onto their Furret, where the Furret only had 1 residual Sucker Punch. So I can come in with my Pangoro, go for 4 Karate Chops, CMP tie them with the Night Slash, and Night Slash from this range will pick up the knockout. Now it's about what is their third. Their third is a Dosh Bun. So Dosh Bun will be met with the Night Slash. Couldn't quite make it to the close combat, but that's fine. I have an answer to this in the back. Dragalge, of course, being good coverage to the fairy weakness of Pangoro. And they are going to make a 2-1 charge move here. I know they have a Psychic Fangs banked on their Steelix, so I actually have to let the first one go because a second Psychic Fangs with my defenses lowered would actually do more damage. Back in comes the Steelix. They end up overfarming a little bit too much, allowing me to make it to an Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail is super effective damage. It doesn't quite pick up the knockout, but at this point, I can just shield this or I can let it go. It wouldn't really matter. I can get the farm down. In comes the Grumpig. I can Psywave, farm down the Dosh Bun, and we are able to take that win. Into next match, Pangoro into Swampert. So more of a neutral lead, so let's see how we want to play this out. Normally, I say never bait, but against a Swampert, I was pretty confident that my opponent would shield. However, they're not always going to shield. Some of them are going to call your bait. So this is why I say never bait, because oftentimes, unless you're like super sure that they're going to like have to shield it, unless like is their only win con is to shield up a move, then I would say otherwise don't bait. Either way, I can still play out this matchup. I can't quite get the farm down, so I'm forced to catch. I catch on my Dragalge where both Hydro Cannon and Sludge are resisted, but my opponent made a really nice play. They anticipated the catch and went for a Sludge, but unfortunately for my opponent, I caught it onto something where both of those moves were resisted. I can now make it to the Outrage on my Dragalge. This is going to be massive neutral damage against the Furret that came in, and it puts it at 1 HP. We get the simultaneous farm down. Now it's about what that Pokemon is in the back. We are absolutely loaded with energy on the Pangoro. Can we get to the dynamic punch? No, we cannot. Not before my opponent makes it to a Night Slash. So I catch the move onto my Pangoro. It is double resisted. I'm going to farm up to the back-to-back close combats. Here's close combat number 1. The opponent's Scizor is energy dry. So here comes close combat number 2. And I have a dynamic punch loaded on my Grumpig. So my opponent can't really afford to shield. They know that. They let it go. And we are able to take the win. Into next match, neutral lead, but a bit of a tough one. We've got Kanto Marowak, Shadow Kanto Marowak. At that, we can, of course, outpace, make it to a Night Slash, and we get the boost. But unfortunately, I instantly reset going into my Grumpig, maybe not aware that I did get that boost, but that's fine. We lure out a Mandibuzz, which is good because our Pangoro absolutely does not want to see a Mandibuzz. I know I can live a foul play from this range, so I will just let this go, and I think I can get to 2 more dynamic punches as long as I can survive the next air slash. So here comes dynamic punch number 2. Can I make it to dynamic punch number 3? I can. That is absolutely massive, but unfortunately my opponent will be able to live this on really low HP into the red health range. So Grumpig putting in a lot of work in that mid game, but they did come out with quite a bit of energy. So in comes Dragalge. I do not want to take that aerial ace. My opponent looks like they threw blind, but no, they actually did connect with a foul play. Now in comes Pangoro. It is a Lapras in the back. I'm already up a shield, so there's no point in baiting here because Psywave is resisted. I could always go for a double close combat, but my opponent ends up letting that go. Back in comes the Marowak. Marowak now will be met with a Night Slash. This will probably grab a final shield from my opponent, and it does, which is fantastic because even though they get this full farm down, I have 2 shields left in play. All I have to do really is make it to an Aqua Tail and then watch for a catch. As long as my opponent is unable to get the catch onto this Mandibuzz, then this game is over. They're pretty much energy dry on the Mandibuzz, and yeah, they tried the catch. I wasn't even at the Aqua Tail yet. Maybe my opponent wasn't aware of my energy, but we are able to take the win. Nice lead in the next match. We've got Pangoro into Jellicent. The opponent safe switches into a Shadow Typhlosion, and we have a great response in Dragalge. Now, Dragalge, well, it does resist all charge moves from the Shadow Typhlosion. I knew a Shadow Blast Burn would do absolutely insane damage and let my opponent flip switch. So I decided to actually shield that up. They end up baiting with a Thunder Punch, which doesn't allow them to pace any better. So if you're the Typhlosion in this matchup, always go Blast Burn. That said, I know I can win this in the 2-shield scenario. Even if they go double Thunder Punch here, I know I can live one of them from this range, but they end up full sending the Blast Burn, playing to their win condition of flipping switch, and now back in comes the Jellicent. Jellicent now will be met with a Outrage, and with all charge move or all shields out of this matchup, my Pangoro is gonna go absolutely ham. They end up not throwing the charge move, which is why I'm just spamming out these Aqua Tails. May as well get it as low as possible if my opponent is not going to throw their energy. Can I get the acid farm down? My opponent wasn't willing to risk it. They are at the back-to-back surfs at this point. However, I'm just going to come in with my Pangoro. I'm going to just take this charge move. We don't quite know what is in the back just yet. Surf connects. It's a Fortress in the back, a Bug Bite Fortress. I'm going to farm up as far as I can, all the way to the close combat, plus some, and maximizing Karate Chop damage before debuffing my attack. And now in comes our Grumpig. Grumpig can live any one charge move here, not too worried about it. Bug Bite's super effective, but they're not going to get enough of them off. We're going to Psywave down the rest of the team, and we are able to take that win. Aegislash in the next game. This is the brand new Pokemon in the world of Pokemon Go, but I don't know, is it Aegislash or Aegislash? Please let me know in the comments down below. That said, we have super effective Ninetales here, and we get the boost on the very first one, but you are already seeing the Bastiodon-like bulk from this thing. Even though it's typing, benefits us in this matchup because it's half Ghost. I mean, Bastiodon would too because it's double weak to fighting, but they are going to switch into their sword form. They go for the Shadow Ball. That's resisted damage, but it does absolutely insane damage to the Pangoro. I end up connecting with a Night Slash on the Malamar. The Malamar shields that up, maybe worried about a close combat if they weren't counting. And now in comes Grumpig because I do not have a good answer to Malamar in the back. I will just go for the Dynamic Punch. My opponent did throw on the CMP tie, but I did live. And now, can we get the Psywave farm down? Definitely not. It's triple resisted, but neither could my opponent. They're forced to throw this energy, but they are pretty close to the back-to-back. So I'm going to come in with my Dragalge. Can I get the full farm down? Not quite. So I am going to shield this up. Dragalge is kind of my last hope in this matchup. I do not know what's in the back, and it's a Diggersby. And this matchup is going to be incredibly hard to play out of unless I make an absolutely insane catch on my Pangoro. I am going to go for the back-to-back Aqua Tails before my opponent even fires off the Scorching Sands before they lower my attack potentially. I make an absolutely soul read catch when they were going to throw, which is absolutely massive. Is it going to put us back in this matchup? Not with that lag, it's not. My opponent gets 2 quick attacks there, even though I got 1 Karate Chop, it looks like. And I did not know that at the time, and I believe that lets them outpace me by a single turn. I ended up committing the shield, thinking we would get to the next charge move on the CMB tie, even if they baited. But unfortunately, that is not the case. They're going to outpace me by 1 turn. I'm not sure if that was lag or if I just needed to call the bait, but my opponent able to take the win. But very cool to see the new Pokemon in play. Into next match, we've got Shadow Scizor. Once again, this Pokemon is absolutely everywhere, especially on the lead. If you want to run Manabuzz on the lead, or if you want to run a Fire on the lead, just to wall this thing, I wouldn't blame you. Either way, though, we go for the Night Slash, we get the 2x boost, and now I'm going to stay in this matchup. My opponent ends up baiting with a Night Slash of their own, but here comes Night Slash number 2 from Pangoro. And guess what? We get a second boost, which means Karate Chop is doing massive damage. We get the simultaneous KO, but we have a shield advantage. So this is a fantastic position. This is where our Grumpig wants to be. When all shields are down, this thing has great coverage into the majority of the meta. That said, in comes a Blastoise. Blastoise now will be met with a Dynamic Punch. Looks like it's going to take 2 of those to KO. I'm going to call the bait on the Skull Bash. It is just the Hydro Cannon, but they're one away from another, so I'm going to sneak and catch onto my Dragalge. Dragalge, of course, resisting Hydro Cannon, can take that very comfortably. They're going to farm back up to the Hydro Cannon and then bank all of that energy and switch in a Jellicent. But Jellicent, yes, it resists Aqua Tail, yes, it resists Acid, but you know what it doesn't resist? The hard-hitting charge move of Outrage, and they tried to farm up to the back-to-back, but they're not going to get there. Here comes Outrage number 2 that picks up the knockout on the Jellicent. Back in comes the Blastoise, but they no longer have a win con, so they will just resign the match. Nice lead in the next match. We've got Pangoro into Dusclops. My opponent is going to safe switch into a Fury Cutter Gliscod, and Fury Cutter Gliscod will be met with Dragalge. Now, Dragalge is a complete wall to energy from the Golisopod, so this is a absolutely massive matchup for us here. But I am going to go for a bait because a lot of Golisopods like to try and flip switch in this matchup, so I will bait. I'm going to let the second charge move go because I actually can live 2 of them because they're on Fury Cutter and still make it to a second Outrage because of the bait. And now my opponent will have to commit 2 shields in this matchup to flip switch. That said, I do not want to concede the farm down if I'm going to give them switch anyways. So back in comes Pangoro. Pangoro loves to be up energy, and now in comes a Quagsire. I am going to throw the the close combat on the CMP tie with the opponent's Aqua Tail. It's not quite enough to KO, which is pretty unfortunate because now I am forced to shield this up, but I can get the full Karate Chop farm down here before my opponent is able to make it to another charge move. What are they going to come in with? They're going to come back in with the Dusclops. Now, Dusclops, of course, has insane pacing, but it is all resisted in this matchup. And yes, my defense is 2 times lowered, so I'm expecting my opponent to just settle for the Shadow Punch at this range. So I'm going to go for 1, catch the Shadow Punch onto my Dragalge, completely sacrificing it. And it looks like Grumpig might not even have to play this game. I could just come back in with the Pangoro here. That's exactly what I'm going to do. I can outpace the Golisopod to the Night Slash. This will be enough to pick up the knockout on the Golisopod. Back in comes the Dusclops. Dusclops is going to be met with a Night Slash as well. And the pacing of Pangoro absolutely ripping through this team. We get an unnecessary boost at the end just to rub salt in the wound, and we are able to take the win. Grumpig got to take the game off. Into the next match, we've got a Ninetales. Now, Ninetales is a neutral matchup for us. However, their fast move is doing quite a bit more than ours. So if they really want to, I think they can double bait me here, or not double bait me, but just go for straight Weather Ball here and fully farm me down with Embers. However, if I think if I double baited and they shielded both, then you can take it in the 2s. I would imagine, but I full sent because I wanted to at least just confirm that second shield from my opponent or take them out. But in comes Grumpig, and my opponent overheats my Grumpig before I'm able to get to a charge move, and that puts me in a really difficult situation. But I come in with my Dragalge. They respond with a Golisopod. Now, Golisopod is not an answer to a Dragalge. I'm going to let that Aqua Jet go. I'm going to overfarm as much as I can because I want as much residual energy coming out of this matchup as I can for whatever is in the back. Outrage picks up the knockout. What is that final Pokemon? Do we get to find out? It's an Azumarill. Now, Azumarill is maybe the worst case scenario for the Dragalge plus Pangoro remaining Pokemon, because unfortunately all of my charge moves are walled here on Dragalge, and same goes for Pangoro. So I'm forced to just go for acids, spam out these Aqua Tails, try and do as much chip damage as humanly possible, but it's just not going to be enough. My opponent can live these absolutely with ease. I can't go for Outrage here because Outrage is double resisted on the Fairy typing as opposed to single resisted Aqua Tails on the Azumarill. And I am going to get them into the red health range, pivot into my Pangoro. My opponent reads that though. I am going to pick up the knockout on the Ninetales with a Night Slash, but it's too little too late. My opponent can now just bubble, farm down the Pangoro. They come out with a charge move loaded, and Ice Beam or Play Rough from this range will be enough to pick up the knockout. And unfortunately, we do lose that game. But yeah, this team overall was really, really strong. I fell a little bit after my run into the 2800s. However, I was able to recover a good amount of elo with this team, which kind of surprised me. I think I saw a lot of teams where I was saying like Clodsire, Primeape, just a lot of teams disrespecting Psywave in general. And then I was just like, you know what? The coverage of Grumpig is just so strong into the majority of the meta. There are a lot of ghosts, and there are a lot of things weak to fighting. So you know what? The combination of this, its fast and charge moves, I was like, it has play still, and it's only single weak to bug as opposed to Malamar, which is double weak to bug, and it also doesn't have that fairy weakness. So I just felt like Grumpig was definitely in a good spot, even despite all the bug buffs. But yeah, that's going to be it for me from this video. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, peace.